Good evening, and welcome to tonight's journey, where you'll explore the harsh realities of life under the frozen skies of Eastern Anatolia. Imagine a world where the cold is more than just a temperature. It's a presence that wraps itself around everything. The chill seeps into your bones, and the land, untouched by the warmth of civilization, is an endless expanse of snow and ice. This is a land where every breath is visible, the air so cold it bites at your skin, and the nights stretch long and lonely under a sky heavy with winter. Eastern Anatolia, nestled in the heart of Turkey, is a place of extreme beauty and, at times, unrelenting cold. The land is rugged and vast, surrounded by towering mountain ranges that are perpetually covered in snow. It's a place where the seasons hold the power to shape the lives of those who call it home. In the winter, the temperature can plunge to terrifying depths, often reaching below -20 degrees Celsius, with winds that howl down from the mountains, like wild beasts, biting and relentless. This is where the Kurdish people live, tucked into this harsh but beautiful corner of the world. For the Kurds of Eastern Anatolia, winter is not just a season, it's a test of endurance, a battle for survival. The conditions here are unforgiving, and each day spent under the weight of the snow feels like an unspoken challenge. The villages, small and tightly knit, are scattered across this icy expanse, with families huddled in stone houses that offer little protection from the biting cold. For the Kurdish people, survival isn't a choice, it's a way of life. The cold is constant, but so is their resilience. As you settle into the warmth of your own surroundings, I invite you to close your eyes and let the world around you soften. Imagine you are with us now, standing at the edge of one of these Kurdish villages, looking out over the endless snowfields. The air is crisp, the ground beneath you hard with frost, and the world seems to hold its breath in the stillness of winter. You can feel the weight of the cold, and yet there's something deeply comforting about this landscape, a sense of strength in the silence. The Kurdish people have endured this for generations, mastering the art of survival, and it's their strength we will focus on tonight. So, take a deep breath, let the sounds of the world fade, and allow yourself to drift into this immersive journey. Tonight, you'll step into the shoes of those who live here, those whose very existence depends on their ability to thrive in one of the harshest climates known to humanity. As the chill of winter blankets the world outside, you'll come to understand what it truly means to live through these cold days, to survive, to endure. Surviving in such a place requires more than physical endurance. It requires a quiet kind of strength, one that doesn't shout for attention but instead hums steadily in the background of daily life. It is a strength forged not in moments of grandeur, but in the small, quiet choices that shape a life lived under duress. For the Kurdish people of Eastern Anatolia, winter is more than just a season to get through. It is a defining part of who they are. In this place, resilience isn't a concept. It's a way of life. It's in the fire that's kindled every morning, the hands that work the land even when the ground is frozen, the families that gather together around a flickering flame in the dark of night. But before we dive deeper, let me tell you a little more about the Kurdish people who call this land home. The Kurdish people have lived in the region for thousands of years, with their roots stretching across modern-day Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and Iran. A rich and diverse ethnic group, they share not only a common ancestry but also a language and culture that ties them to this rugged, mountainous landscape. Known for their resilience and strong sense of community, the Kurds are traditionally pastoralists, relying on farming and animal husbandry to sustain themselves. In the winter months, when snow blankets the hills and the winds rage through the valleys, the Kurdish people face an annual struggle to keep warm, feed their families, and protect their livestock. Historically, the Kurds have faced countless challenges, from periods of exile and repression to conflicts with neighboring nations. Their culture has weathered many storms, but they have never lost their sense of identity or their determination to survive. The cold, harsh winters of Eastern Anatolia are just one more chapter in a long history of survival. Yet, despite the difficulties, there is a quiet pride in the way the Kurdish people live. Their connection to the land, to one another, and to their traditions runs deep. It is through this unwavering bond that they endure the most extreme conditions, finding warmth not just in the fire, but in each other. Tonight, as you embark on this journey through the cold, I ask you to reflect on the nature of survival. What does it take to endure the harshest conditions? How do people find warmth in the coldest of places? As we move through the story of the Kurdish people in the winter months, consider how resilience is not always loud. It doesn't always demand attention. Sometimes, it's the quiet acts, the lighting of a fire, the sharing of a meal, the closing of a door against the cold that sustain us through even the longest, darkest nights. As the fire crackles and the wind howls in the distance, you'll explore what it means to survive in a world that seems determined to break you. The Kurdish people have mastered this art. And as you move through their story, you'll discover that survival in the face of such cold is as much about the heart as it is about the body. Their strength is quiet, unyielding, and steady, and it is the very heart of the life they lead here, beneath the endless winter sky. Let the journey begin, and remember, the cold may bite at your skin, but with every step you take, you'll find the warmth that sustains you through the storm. Welcome to the winter of Eastern Anatolia. Welcome to the Kurdish way of survival. In Eastern Anatolia, mornings don't come gently. They arrive with a sharp breath, as if the land itself is awakening to an unyielding chill. The first sign of morning light is not a warm, gentle rising of the sun. It's a weak, diffused grayness that barely pierces through thick clouds, sending only faint rays over the snow-covered plains. The temperature, still well below freezing, fills the air with an almost oppressive chill that seems to seep into the very fabric of the environment. The land is heavy with winter, and the first breath of the morning is cold, the air sharp enough to sting the lungs. The snow, pristine and untouched, lies heavy on the ground, its surface reflecting the weak light from above, a cruel mirror of the world's harshness. Inside the homes of the Kurdish people, the cold is no less merciless. As sleep slowly loosens its grip and eyes begin to open, the sharp bite of the cold quickly replaces any fleeting warmth from the bed. The bed itself, though an essential comfort in this harsh land, offers little against the cold. Thin woolen blankets, worn and frayed from years of use, are what separate the body from the biting air, but they are not enough. The wool is coarse, having been spun by hand, and over the years it has lost its softness, now only a thin barrier that provides minimal warmth. The air inside the house, though still and quiet, holds a dampness that deepens the chill, making it feel colder than it should be. The room is still dark, lit only by the faintest traces of light filtering through frost-laden windows, casting a muted, cold glow over the room. There's a stillness in the air, one that feels as if time itself is suspended, weighed down by the oppressive chill. The first moments after waking are always the hardest. The body is stiff from the cold, the muscles reluctant to move. Even the smallest action, stretching out arms or shifting position, feels labored. There is an unmistakable heaviness to the body, as if the cold has pressed itself into the skin, anchoring you down. The warmth of the blankets is fleeting, almost imaginary. For the moment the body moves, the cold seeps in. A sharp intake of breath, and you realize the cold is already there, creeping under the blankets, pressing against exposed skin. It seeps into the fingers and toes, the parts of the body that are most vulnerable to the cold. You can almost feel it creeping into your bones, settling in deep. It's a cold that no amount of wool can chase away, and no matter how tightly you pull the blankets, it remains. The frost on the windows seems to mock your attempts to stay warm, a reminder that even though the room holds the promise of safety, the world outside is anything but forgiving. The frost is not just a simple covering, it's a pattern of nature's harshest breath. The ice has formed delicate, almost ethereal designs that twist and curl along the glass. The intricate lacework a reminder of the cold that exists beyond the walls. You could almost trace the delicate paths with your fingers, but touching the glass brings only a shock of cold. The frost serves as a constant reminder that the outside world is unforgiving, a reminder that the fight for warmth is not over, not yet. With each passing second, the weight of the cold becomes more apparent, pushing against your chest, making the act of getting up feel like a monumental task. The body is reluctant to leave the warmth of the bed, and yet the cold is pressing in, demanding action. There's no choice but to leave the comfort of the blankets. Survival demands it, and so, with a resigned sigh, you lift your stiff legs off the side of the bed, planting your feet onto the cold stone floor, which sends an immediate shock of coldness through your body. The floor, rough and unyielding, is an extension of the harsh environment. The cold from the earth below seems to rise, enveloping your feet, and the sensation shoots up the legs, leaving goosebumps in its wake. Each movement after waking feels like an effort, a slow and deliberate process. The cold air feels like a weight that presses down, making every motion feel cumbersome and heavy. The muscles resist, and the joints ache as though they are frozen in place. The body protests, not wanting to leave the sanctuary of warmth that was briefly felt, but there is no time to dwell on the discomfort. Every second of hesitation is a moment lost to the cold that waits patiently just outside the door. The cold is a persistent companion, and it will not allow indulgence in warmth for long. The instinct to move, to get up, to act, this is what drives you. It's a ritual performed every day, one born not from luxury or ease, but from the understanding that without action, the cold will quickly take over. The shiver that follows is not just a reflex. It's the body's natural reaction to the cold that penetrates the air. The cold has already taken root, seeping through the walls, through the roof, and now into the bones. Even as the body begins to adjust, the chill remains. It sits at the edges of consciousness, reminding you that in this part of the world, comfort is a luxury that few can afford. You quickly learn that warmth is never guaranteed. It must be earned. The fire must be started, the food prepared, and the day begun before the cold becomes too much to bear. The cold doesn't ask permission to enter, it simply does. The challenge is not to defeat it, but to endure it long enough to survive. The moment you stand, you realize that you are not just facing a temperature, you're facing an atmosphere. The cold feels as though it extends beyond the physical body, like an intangible presence that fills the space. A constant force that has been there long before you woke up and will remain long after you are gone. Even after years of living in such conditions, there's no growing accustomed to it. The cold is always felt freshly, with every breath, every movement. It's not simply cold, it's a force, one that asserts its presence, one that must be fought against every single day. There is no getting used to it. You adapt, you survive, but you never become immune to its grip. As you shuffle across the room, the sound of your feet brushing against the stone floor is accompanied by the soft, almost imperceptible creak of the house settling, the beams stretching against the pressure of the cold. The cold is in the very walls, in the wood, in the stone. It presses against the bones of the house, just as it presses against the bones of the people. The silence is profound, broken only by the crackling of the fire in the hearth, if the fire has been lit, that is. If not, you know the task ahead. Gather kindling, stoke the embers, create the warmth needed to start the day. The fire is not just a luxury, it's the first battle of the day, the one that will ensure you don't remain trapped in the cold for hours. Each movement is deliberate. The fire requires careful attention. The wood is gathered, sometimes from nearby trees, sometimes from stores kept inside for the harshest months. The kindling is arranged with care, the dry sticks placed just so that the fire will catch easily. The match strikes, and for a moment, there is a flicker of hope. The fire, though small at first, begins to grow, sending warmth into the room slowly but steadily. The crackling sound of the wood is a sign of life, of movement, of progress. The warmth from the fire spreads in slow waves, pushing back the cold, but it never fully conquers it. The warmth is fleeting, only strong enough to cover the area near the hearth, but it is a victory, however small. As the fire grows, the room begins to warm, though it is a slow process. The firelight dances, casting long shadows on the walls, the flickering light creating the illusion of movement in the stillness of the morning. But even as the warmth spreads, the cold remains. It lingers in the corners of the room, in the farthest reaches of the house, reminding you that no matter how much warmth you generate, there is always more cold to contend with. It is a battle that never ends, one that requires constant vigilance. In Eastern Anatolia, the homes of the Kurdish people are built with one thing in mind: survival. These are not places of luxury, but rather sanctuaries meant to withstand the brutal cold, howling winds, and snow that define the harsh winters of this region. The homes are constructed from materials that are readily available and provide necessary insulation against the fierce elements. Thick stone walls, sturdy wooden beams, and small windows, these homes are built to endure. But comfort is a distant luxury, a concept far removed from the harsh realities of life in one of the coldest regions of Turkey. The stone used to build the walls is solid, reliable, and ancient. The Kurdish people have learned over centuries how to use the natural resources around them to create homes that can stand up to the relentless cold. The stone keeps the heat in during the winter, but it also absorbs the chill, especially at night, when temperatures often plummet well below freezing. Even though the houses are built with thick walls, the cold seeps through in a way that no human effort can truly prevent. The stone walls, though they protect from the fierce winds, are unable to stop the cold from settling deep inside. Inside, the homes are simple, with the focus on functionality rather than comfort. The floor is often made of rough-hewn stone, a solid foundation that helps keep the house stable in the face of snow and storms. However, the stone can also be unforgiving, especially in the early hours of the morning when the cold of the night lingers. Every step on the stone feels like a small reminder of the world outside, cold, unyielding, and demanding. There are no soft carpets to cushion your feet, no thick rugs to shield you from the constant chill. The cold permeates everything, from the floor to the walls, to the very air that you breathe. The furniture is sparse and practical. Wooden benches, tables, and low beds are the main fixtures in the home. There is no extravagant decor, no excess. The pieces are made with simple, sturdy materials, designed to be functional rather than comfortable. The benches serve as seating for families to gather around the hearth, and the tables are used for eating, working, and maintaining the household. Each piece has a purpose, and there is no room for anything unnecessary. In such a harsh environment, every object must justify its existence by contributing to survival. At night, when the fire has burned low and the last embers are fading, the temperature inside the house can drop significantly. The beds are low to the ground, often made from wood or stone, and the bedding consists of thin, woolen blankets. These blankets, while durable, offer minimal protection against the cold that seeps in from every corner of the room. The wool, though warm, is not enough to keep the body fully insulated from the chill that presses in from the stone floors and the air that creeps in through the cracks in the walls. The people sleep huddled together, their bodies close for warmth, a shared struggle to stay warm in the harshness of winter. The thin blankets are often supplemented with layers of clothing, but even this is not always enough. The cold is a constant companion, one that cannot be easily dismissed. In the mornings, the people rise from their beds with stiff limbs, feeling the bite of the cold air as they move. There is no easy transition from warmth to wakefulness. Instead, there is the sudden shock of the cold, the immediate realization that the battle for warmth must begin again. Even as they begin their daily routines, the chill remains, hanging over everything like a shadow. One of the most important features in these homes is the hearth, or the fireplace, which serves as the heart of the house. It is in front of the hearth that families gather to prepare their meals, to warm themselves, and to share time together. The hearth is more than just a source of heat. It is a place of comfort, a place where the family can bond in the otherwise cold and isolating environment. The fire must be tended to regularly, as it is the only source of warmth in the house. The people gather wood throughout the year to ensure that there is enough to sustain the fire during the harsh winter months. Without this fire, the house would be uninhabitable. However, despite the warmth it provides, the fire cannot reach far beyond the hearth itself. The warmth it offers is fleeting, and as you move further from the hearth, the chill begins to creep back in. The cold remains a constant presence, a reminder that survival in this part of the world is never easy, and comfort is something that must be worked for, not taken for granted. Even though the fire is burning brightly in the hearth, There are still corners of the room that remain cold, and the walls and floor retain the chill that they absorbed throughout the night. The people of Eastern Anatolia have learned to adapt to this cold. They dress in layers, adding more clothing as needed, wrapping themselves in thick woolen garments that help insulate their bodies against the cold. The clothing is simple, practical, and made to last. They wear woolen tunics, scarves, hats, and gloves, all made by hand from materials that they gather and spin themselves. These clothes are worn not for style, but for survival. They are made to keep the body warm, to prevent the cold from taking hold. In the colder months, the people spend more time inside, sheltered from the harsh winds and snow. But even inside, there is no true escape from the cold. The rooms remain chilly, and the fire must be stoked regularly to keep the warmth alive. The family gathers around the fire to eat their meals, to warm their hands, to share stories, and to find a little comfort in the midst of the cold. The hearth, though central to life, cannot keep away the cold that lingers in the air. The people move quickly, aware that time is of the essence. The cold is always threatening to take over, and the battle for warmth is never truly won. Despite the hardships, these homes are filled with resilience. They are not just houses. They are symbols of survival, of perseverance in the face of nature's cruelty. The cold, the wind, and the snow are constant companions, but so are the people. Together, they make do with what they have. They find warmth in each other, in their shared struggles, and in the simple rituals that define daily life. The fire, the meals, the family, these are the small comforts that sustain them, that allow them to face the cold day after day. Even in the harshest of conditions, there is a sense of community. The Kurdish people have lived in these homes for generations, and the way they survive the cold is not just a matter of individual strength, but of collective resilience. The hearth is where families gather to share warmth, to support one another, and to keep the fire of survival alive. It is in these moments, these shared experiences, that the cold becomes something that can be endured, not something that can be defeated. In the villages of Eastern Anatolia, the cold is a constant companion, but so is the strength of the people who live there. Their homes may be simple, their lives hard, but they have learned to endure. They have learned that survival is not about avoiding the cold, but about facing it with strength and resilience day after day. The harsh winters of Eastern Anatolia may take their toll, but they do not break the spirit of the Kurdish people. Their homes, their families, and their will to survive keep them going, even in the darkest, coldest days of winter. In the heart of Eastern Anatolia, the homes of the Kurdish people stand as quiet witnesses to generations of endurance and survival. The landscape here is dominated by rugged mountains, vast expanses of snow, and the relentless cold that invades every corner of life. The homes, though simple, have been designed over centuries to endure these harsh conditions. They are not places of comfort, but rather places of refuge from the unrelenting chill, designed to withstand the harsh winters that define life in this remote region. The houses are primarily constructed from local materials, stone and wood, both of which are abundant in the area. The thick stone walls are the primary defense against the cold. They absorb the heat from the fire at night, and although they provide some insulation, the cold remains an ever-present threat, seeping into every crevice. These stone walls, though solid, also act as conductors of cold. In the night, when the fire dies down, the stone retains the chill, releasing it gradually so that the cold persists even when the wind outside is calm. The cold can be felt inside, not just as a temperature, but as a weight, a reminder of the hostile environment that surrounds them. Despite the thick walls, the houses offer little protection from the elements. The windows are small and often covered in layers of frost during the winter, their tiny panes allowing only a dim, diffused light to enter the house. The frost is not just a decorative pattern, it's a barrier between the inside and the harshness of the world outside. The cold, like an intruder, forces its way through the cracks in the walls, the gaps in the windows, and the uneven spaces between the roof beams. Even in the depths of winter, the homes remain cold and uninviting. Inside, the floors are typically made of rough stone or wood. These surfaces, though practical and long-lasting, are often unbearably cold. The lack of carpeting or any form of floor insulation means that even the simplest tasks, like standing or moving about the house, can feel like a test of endurance. The stone floors are chilled to the touch, and walking across them in bare feet is a harsh reminder of the cold that pervades everything. The people of Eastern Anatolia have learned to move quickly, to take fewer steps, to gather what they need from the warmth of the hearth and retreat back into the comfort of blankets or clothing as soon as possible. The furnishings in these homes are minimal. There are no soft sofas, no plush armchairs to sink into after a long day. The furniture is rudimentary wooden benches and low tables designed not for comfort, but for necessity. The tables are used for eating, for preparing food, for sharing meals with family. The benches are for sitting during the day, resting, or gathering in front of the fire. There are no ornaments or decorations, no pictures on the walls, no trinkets to remind them of a world outside this harsh environment. Everything in the house is focused on survival, on making it through another day, another night, in the cold. The furniture is strong and functional, crafted by hand, passed down through generations, but it offers no relief from the relentless cold. The beds, though essential, are also functional rather than luxurious. They are low to the ground, often made from wood or stone. The mattresses are thin and often filled with straw or wool, offering minimal comfort. The bedding consists of several layers of woolen blankets, many of them hand-woven by the family. The wool is tough, not soft like modern blankets, but it provides warmth by trapping air between the fibers. However, even with several blankets, the warmth never lasts for long. The cold is relentless, and in the morning, when the fire has long since burned out, the bed is nothing more than a small sanctuary from the biting air. The people sleep together, close for warmth, huddled beneath the thin blankets, their bodies pressed together to share whatever heat can be found. In the mornings, the first task is always to light the fire. The hearth, usually the focal point of the home, is essential for survival. It is where meals are cooked, where water is boiled, and where warmth is generated. The fire must be tended to throughout the day, especially during the winter months when the cold becomes unbearable. The firewood is gathered in the autumn, before the worst of the cold sets in, and stored in nearby sheds or under shelter. The wood is carefully chosen, cut, and stacked to ensure it will last through the long winter. However, the fire is never enough to fully warm the entire house. The warmth from the fire can only reach the immediate area around it, leaving the rest of the room cold and uninviting. When the fire is lit, The warmth it provides is a fleeting comfort. The hearth is the heart of the home, the place where families gather not just for warmth, but for companionship. As the fire flickers and crackles, the family members take their seats around it, huddling together to share meals, to tell stories, to bond in a way that the cold does not allow outside the walls of their home. The fire is a source of light, warmth, and life. Yet, the moment the fire dies down, the cold begins to creep back in. The warmth from the hearth may fill the immediate area, but the cold lingers in the corners of the room, in the walls, and in the floors. For the Kurdish people of Eastern Anatolia, the hearth is more than just a functional part of the house. It is a symbol of survival. The fire is the difference between life and death during the coldest months of the year. It is the means by which they cook their food, boil their water, and generate the warmth that makes life bearable. The fire is tended to with care, its flames nurtured and protected, because without it, the house would be uninhabitable. Without it, the cold would take over completely, and survival would become far more difficult. Despite the importance of the fire, there is no escaping the cold that fills the house. The cold is a constant companion. It is in the very bones of the house, in the stone and the wood that make up the walls and floors. The warmth of the fire, though appreciated, can only stretch so far. The cold, it seems, is always just behind, ready to take over again once the fire begins to die down. Even with the fire roaring in the hearth, the cold is never truly defeated. It is simply held at bay for a while. The people of Eastern Anatolia have learned to live with this cold. They have learned to adapt, to move quickly, to make the most of what little warmth they can find. They wear layers of woolen clothing, thick scarves, hats, and gloves, wrapping themselves in warmth wherever possible. The clothing is simple, but it is designed for function, not fashion. The layers trap air, helping to insulate the body and retain warmth. They have learned to cover every part of their body, to protect themselves from the cold that is always threatening to slip in. In the evenings, when the work of the day is done, the family gathers together by the fire. The house is dark and cold, but the fire provides a small haven of warmth. The people talk, share stories, and find comfort in each other's company. There is no rush, no sense of urgency to get through the evening. The cold outside forces them to remain indoors, and in those moments, the family bond becomes even more important. The fire crackles and hisses, the flames flickering in the hearth, providing light and warmth to the room. But even as the fire burns brightly, the cold remains just beyond the warmth, a reminder that survival is never guaranteed, that the battle for warmth must continue every day. As the icy grip of winter loosens its hold on the early morning air, the first task of the day becomes crystal clear: make a fire. In Eastern Anatolia, survival is defined by the fire. It's not a mere luxury, it's a lifeline. This is not some quaint fireplace you'd find in a cozy home back in a temperate climate, where you can leisurely sip your tea by the hearth while reading a book. No, here, the fire is the very pulse of the household. Without it, the cold seeps into every corner, freezes the bones, and stifles the spirit. The fire is warmth, food, light, and life itself, all rolled into one flickering, crackling bundle of necessity. The first sign of life after waking up is the rustling of blankets, the heavy groan of the body lifting itself from the bed, followed by the inevitable, bone-chilling step onto the stone floor. The cold floor, icy as it might be, does not deter the people who know what comes next. They know that the only chance to thaw their stiffened limbs and make the house bearable is to get the fire started, and quickly. There's no time to waste in deliberation or comfort. The chill will not wait for anyone. Without the fire, nothing happens. There's no breakfast. There's no heat to chase away the cold. There are no gatherings around the hearth to share stories, bond over a meal, or simply escape the frosty silence. Every day, from the very first moment the body stretches out of bed, becomes a race against the relentless cold, and the fire is the weapon in that battle. The methods for making a fire in the traditional Kurdish homes of Eastern Anatolia are as simple as they are effective. These methods have been passed down through generations, refined and perfected by necessity. There is no room for shortcuts. If the fire doesn't catch, the entire household suffers, and a slow, uncomfortable morning turns into a long, cold day. The first step is crucial. Gather wood. Wood is the lifeblood of these homes, more precious than gold during the cold months. The process of gathering and storing firewood begins in the fall, with families setting aside the materials needed to keep the hearth alive during the unforgiving winter months. Every piece of wood has a purpose: the dry twigs for kindling, the logs for steady burning, and the larger branches for the long nights when the fire needs to last until morning. The wood must be stored carefully to ensure it remains dry enough to burn efficiently. The struggle against the cold is one that starts before the first snowflakes even fall, and it continues all winter long. In the mornings, the family rises, and it is time to put the first lesson into practice. Gather the kindling. The kindling is the most important part of the fire. Without it, even the best logs won't catch. The task of gathering it often falls to the younger members of the household, as the older generation tends to other duties. They rush outside, gathering whatever dry twigs and branches they can find, quickly stacking them by the door. The first gust of wind that hits their face reminds them of the cold they're trying to combat, but there's no time to be disheartened. The kindling must be collected quickly, decisively, and without complaint. Once inside, the process of lighting the fire begins. The hearth, a simple stone construction, is the focal point of the house. There's nothing ornate about it. It's practical, built to contain the fire safely and to provide as much warmth as possible. The tools for starting the fire are simple: matches, flint, and sometimes even a fire starter. But even with these tools, there is a sense of urgency that hangs in the air. The fire must catch, and it must catch quickly. There's no time for second attempts, no time for mistakes. The cold doesn't wait for you to get things right. With a few careful movements, the kindling is arranged. The dry twigs are placed in a small, compact pyramid shape, with the largest logs saved for later. The first strike of the match is decisive. If the fire starts, it will quickly gain strength and spread, creating a small circle of warmth that will grow in intensity. The first flicker of flame is always the most rewarding part of the process. For a split second, the world seems to pause. The fire catches, and you can feel it, just a small flicker of heat, but a glimpse of victory over the cold. That is the moment that sets the pace for the day. The methods for making fire in these homes have remained largely unchanged for centuries. There is no modern convenience, no lighter fluid, no fancy matches. The people of Eastern Anatolia have relied on these simple, time-tested methods to keep their homes warm through the long winters. Each step is deliberate, each action performed with the quiet efficiency born of necessity. The flint and steel method, though largely obsolete in the modern world, still finds its place in the homes here. This tool, made up of a piece of steel and a hard stone, is used to create sparks that can ignite tinder. It's an ancient method, one that requires patience and skill. The flint is struck against the steel with precision, producing a small shower of sparks that fall onto the dry twigs below. The key to success is the dry tinder, the small, thin pieces of wood or leaves that catch fire the moment the spark touches them. The goal is to create enough heat to ignite the kindling, which will then set the logs ablaze. If successful, the fire will take off, the dry wood crackling and hissing as it burns. But the fire doesn't always catch on the first try. Sometimes the wind outside is too strong, or the kindling is damp from the cold night air. Sometimes it takes multiple attempts before the fire finally starts. There's no room for frustration. The cold will not wait for you to get things right. Each strike of the flint is another attempt at survival, another step in the fight against the harsh winter. Once the fire is going, the heat is still minimal, but the first signs of warmth begin to spread. The crackling sound of the kindling burning is soothing. It's the sound of life in the midst of the cold. The warmth from the fire slowly radiates outward, filling the room and pushing back the icy air. It's a temporary relief, but a relief nonetheless. The fire brings life to the room, casting flickering shadows on the walls and warming the hands that have been numb from the chill. It takes time for the fire to fully take hold, but once it does, the whole house begins to change. The air feels less heavy, less suffocating. The people, who had been shivering under the weight of the cold, begin to feel the warmth return to their bones. It's a small comfort, but it's enough to make the day bearable. The fire is a temporary victory against the cold, but that small victory makes all the difference. When the fire catches fully, when the small flicker of flame has spread to the kindling and the room is finally bathed in warmth, the difference is immediate and tangible. The transformation is remarkable. The cold which had gripped every surface, every person, begins to recede, if only momentarily. The warmth from the fire fills the room, slowly spreading, creeping into the corners, chasing away the cold that had settled there. The air, which had felt heavy and oppressive, begins to feel lighter, more breathable. The stone walls, still cold, feel less daunting when the fire starts to roar. In those moments, when the warmth from the fire spreads through the room, the sense of relief is overwhelming. The people, who had been stiff and cold from the night's chill, begin to relax. The body, which had been tense, holding on to the remnants of warmth in the blankets, starts to unwind. The frozen fingers that had been unable to grasp anything tightly now curl around the warm mugs of tea or cups of water brought near the fire. The warmth feels like a balm to the soul, soothing the body's discomfort and filling the house with a quiet sense of contentment. It's not just the warmth that is comforting, though it's the sense of accomplishment, the knowledge that this fire, this small flame, is the result of effort, patience, and resilience. The fire represents more than just heat. It represents survival. It's the first step in facing the cold. in asserting control over the elements that would otherwise take over and dominate every aspect of life. The fire is both a physical and emotional anchor, providing warmth, light, and hope in a place where both warmth and hope are scarce. As the fire grows and the warmth spreads, the house comes to life. The harshness of the cold is pushed back, and for a moment, the world outside the snow, the wind, the freezing temperatures seems far away. The fire provides not just warmth, but comfort. It's a reminder that survival is possible, even in the harshest conditions. The fire flickers, casting long shadows on the walls, a small beacon of light in the vast darkness of winter. And so, as the people of Eastern Anatolia gather around the fire, they share this moment of peace, of warmth, of relief. It is not a permanent solution, not a cure for the cold, but it is enough. Enough to keep going, enough to survive, enough to face another day in this unforgiving land. The fire may not last forever, but for now, it is the warmth that sustains them, the comfort that pushes back the cold and gives them the strength to carry on. In the harsh landscape of Eastern Anatolia, life is a daily battle against nature. The fire, now crackling and warming the room, is a temporary victory, a brief respite from the biting cold that lingers just beyond the walls. But for the Kurdish people, it is a fight that never truly ends. The cold is relentless, and while the warmth from the fire may push it back for a while, it is never completely banished. Every morning, when the fire is lit, the same ritual is repeated, the same urgency, the same methodical steps. And yet, despite the familiarity, the challenge never feels any easier. The wind howls outside, rattling the windows, and the snow continues to fall in steady, silent sheets. The people know that as soon as the fire burns low, the cold will start creeping back in. There is no room for complacency here. The warmth is fleeting, the fire a temporary ally in a much longer war against the elements. This is why the task of keeping the fire alive becomes such a monumental one. The fire may have caught, but now it must be fed and stoked continually throughout the day. The dry wood, carefully stored over the months, is fed to the flames piece by piece, each log a small act of defiance against the cold. The logs must burn steadily, providing enough heat to combat the chill that pervades the room. But no matter how much wood is added to the fire, the heat remains localized, confined to the immediate area around the hearth. When the fire starts to wane, there is always the temptation to add more wood, to feed the flames with another log. But there's a rhythm to this process, a balance that must be maintained. Too much wood at once, and the fire will burn too quickly, leaving the house cold again before the day is out. Too little, and the fire will sputter and fade. It's a delicate balance. Too much, and you're wasting precious resources. Too little, and you're inviting the cold back into the home. The fire requires constant attention, a vigilance that defines life in these homes. It is not enough to simply start the fire in the morning and walk away. The fire must be tended to, watched over, nurtured, just as the family nurtures one another. Each log that is placed on the fire is an act of care. It is a reminder that in this land, survival is never guaranteed. You must work for it every day. And the fire is the most immediate and visible symbol of that struggle. But as the fire burns steadily, there is a certain comfort in the knowledge that it is doing its job. The warmth spreads slowly at first, creeping out from the hearth, and filling the room bit by bit. The warmth from the fire is like a slow pulse, steadily pushing back the cold, one moment at a time. It is not an overwhelming warmth. There is no heat that wraps around you like a blanket, but it is enough. Enough to thaw your frozen limbs, enough to make the house bearable, enough to survive. The flickering light dances on the walls, casting long shadows that move and shift, and for a brief moment, the cold seems a little farther away. But even as the warmth spreads, the cold never truly goes away. It lingers in the walls, in the air, and in the corners of the room. It presses against the house, constantly threatening to return. The fire is never enough to banish the cold entirely. It is only a temporary solution, a flicker of warmth in a world that is forever in danger of being swallowed by winter. As the warmth spreads, there is a feeling of camaraderie, of shared survival. The family gathers around the fire, huddling close to feel the heat, exchanging quiet words and glances, as if the fire were not just a source of heat, but of unity. It is the hearth that binds them together, a shared symbol of their resilience. The importance of the fire cannot be overstated. It is more than just a method of survival. It becomes the backbone of daily life in these homes. The fire is the first thing to be attended to each morning and the last thing to be maintained before sleep. It is the center of activity. Everything revolves around it: cooking, warming, and socializing. Without the fire, the house would be uninhabitable. Its cold walls would become suffocating, and the people would have nowhere to gather, nothing to sustain them through the harsh hours of the day. Firewood is the most valuable commodity during the winter months. Each piece of wood represents warmth, comfort, and survival. It is the currency of the cold, the resource that makes all other activities possible. The act of gathering wood is not just about collecting logs and kindling. It is about preparing for the future, ensuring that there is enough fuel to keep the fire alive for the coming days and weeks. Families spend much of the autumn months collecting and chopping wood, stacking it in neat piles, ready to be used when the temperatures dip. There's an art to stacking firewood, a methodical organization that ensures the logs will dry out and burn efficiently. The wood is gathered from the forests or from any available supply, often using axes and saws that have been passed down through generations. The work is grueling, especially during the early months of winter, when the trees are heavy with snow and the cold makes even the simplest task feel like a mountain to climb. But the process is part of life. It's what keeps the fire burning, what keeps the house warm. It's what allows them to survive year after year. There is no room for waste. The wood must be carefully selected, with only the dry, seasoned logs chosen to burn. Freshly chopped wood, no matter how plentiful, will not burn easily. It must be left to dry out, to be seasoned by the elements. The woodpile becomes a mark of preparation, a sign that the family is ready, that they have what they need to face the months ahead. The more wood they collect, the more secure they feel. But they also know that no amount of preparation can completely ensure their safety. The cold is unpredictable. The firewood must be used wisely, and the fire must be tended to carefully, with constant attention to keep it alive. As the fire grows stronger and the warmth begins to spread through the room, there's a quiet sense of victory. It's not the grand victory of overcoming an enemy, but the quiet, humble success of making it through another cold morning. The fire becomes more than just a means of survival. It becomes a symbol of the resilience that defines life in Eastern Anatolia. The moment the fire catches and the warmth begins to seep out, it's a victory not just over the cold, but over the forces that would break them down. There's a relief that comes with the fire, one that is both physical and emotional. As the heat spreads, it brings with it a sense of calm, of security. The people of Eastern Anatolia are intimately familiar with the hardships of winter, and the fire represents the small comfort they can offer themselves. It's not about luxury, not about seeking warmth for pleasure. It's about the bare minimum, the survival of the family, the survival of the community. Once the fire catches, the room begins to transform. The warmth spreads, even if slowly, filling the air with a comforting heat. The fire, though small at first, begins to burn steadily, sending up flames that cast flickering shadows on the walls. The warmth is immediate, but it doesn't overwhelm. It doesn't take over the room. It's a subtle, gradual process. It's a gradual return to life, in a place that constantly demands effort to stay alive. The people gather around the fire, each person taking their place, trying to stay within the warmth. The fire is a small oasis in the center of the room. There is a subtle satisfaction in watching the flames, in hearing the soft crackling of the wood as it burns. The warmth from the fire feels like a living thing, a companion in the fight against the cold. As the fire continues to grow, there is time for reflection. The warmth is a temporary reprieve, yes, but it's enough to make the day bearable. The cold will always be there, lurking just outside. But in this moment, inside the warmth of the home, the cold has been pushed back. It is not defeated, it never is, but it is kept at bay. For now, the fire reigns supreme. It is the warmth, the flickering life, that keeps the people of Eastern Anatolia going. When the winter winds howl through the jagged mountains of Eastern Anatolia, the land outside becomes a frozen wasteland, covered in thick layers of snow. The mountains are relentless in their cold embrace, and the world beyond the warm hearth becomes an inhospitable place, one where survival is a constant struggle. Food, once taken for granted in the warmer months, becomes a precious resource, subject to the same cruel forces of nature that govern every other aspect of life. For the Kurdish people in this land, the cold dictates everything. It shapes their relationships with food, forcing them to think not in terms of fresh produce, but in terms of preservation. The arrival of winter means that anything perishable must be consumed quickly or preserved for the months ahead. Gone are the easy days of harvesting fruits and vegetables from the garden. The snow piles high on the ground, and the cold freezes anything left outside. The abundance of the warmer months now seems like a distant memory, a luxury of a time long past. As the days shorten and the temperature drops, the Kurdish people rely heavily on what they have stored and preserved. The pantry becomes a lifeline. Salted meats, dried vegetables, and grains stored in sacks are the foundation of their meals during the long, cold months. These preserved foods are a product of the hard work done in the fall, when they gathered and dried enough to carry them through the winter. They are the fruits of labor, of preparation, of a collective effort to ensure survival in a land where the next meal is never guaranteed. Salted meats are perhaps the most prized of all preserved foods. The traditional methods of salting and drying meat have been passed down for generations. In the fall, families slaughter their livestock, curing the meat with salt to ensure it lasts through the harshest winters. The meat is hung in the cool, dry air to dry and harden, its rich flavors concentrating as it ages. Once winter sets in, the salted meat becomes a staple of the diet, a key ingredient in many meals. It's not just a source of nourishment, it's a reminder of the work done months ago, the care taken to ensure survival when the cold makes it impossible to hunt or gather fresh food. Dried vegetables are another essential part of their winter diet. In the summer and fall, the garden yields an abundance of produce, but once the cold sets in, there's no option but to preserve what can be saved. Vegetables like peppers, tomatoes, and beans are carefully dried, either by hanging them in the sun or by laying them out on drying racks. These dried vegetables provide the necessary nutrients to keep the body functioning throughout the winter. They may not have the freshness or vitality of their summer counterparts, but they offer sustenance when little else is available. When combined with the salted meat, these dried vegetables become the base of most meals, creating a simple but hearty stew that warms the body and comforts the soul. Grains, too, are stored for the winter. Wheat, barley, and rice are kept in sacks, ready to be used in bread, soups, and other dishes. These grains are the foundation of many meals and are vital for providing the necessary energy to sustain the body through the long, cold days. The grains are carefully stored, often in cool, dry places where they won't spoil, and families ration them carefully, ensuring that each meal counts. However, despite the abundance of stored food, it never feels like enough. The fear of running out, of not having enough to make it through the winter, looms over every meal. The cold makes every resource feel more fragile, more finite. The reality is that when winter comes, the food supply is already shrinking, and every portion becomes a carefully calculated decision. Meals become smaller, more sparse, and yet, in a way, more meaningful. Every grain of rice, every bite of meat is treated with respect. There's no room for waste. The cold demands efficiency, and the people of Eastern Anatolia respond by making the most of every resource they have. The importance of community cannot be overstated in this cold, harsh landscape. In Eastern Anatolia, survival is not an individual pursuit. It is a collective effort. Families come together, pooling their resources and working as a unit to face the unyielding challenges of winter. The food that is stored, that is preserved, is not just for one family, it is for the entire village. The cold teaches people the importance of sharing, of coming together to ensure that no one is left behind. In these tight-knit communities, the idea of individualism is almost alien. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, and in times of scarcity, no one is left to fend for themselves. Families exchange food, trade what they have, and help one another in whatever way they can. It is a bond forged in the fire of necessity, a bond that is strengthened by shared hardship. There's an unspoken understanding that what you have is not yours alone. The salted meats, the dried vegetables, the grains, they all belong to the community, not just to the individual. When a neighbor is in need, it's not a question of whether or not you can afford to help. It's a question of how much you can give, how much you can share, to ensure that everyone makes it through the winter. The people of Eastern Anatolia know that their survival depends on the strength of their bonds with one another. In this unforgiving land, the cold can isolate people. But the warmth of community keeps them strong, keeps them alive. Families often come together to prepare meals, sharing not only food but also company and warmth. The cooking process becomes a communal activity, with each person contributing to the meal in some way. Whether it's chopping vegetables, stirring the pot, or bringing in more firewood, everyone plays a role in making the meal a reality. The fire crackles in the hearth, providing the warmth necessary for food to cook, and as the stew bubbles away, the scent fills the air, drawing people together. There's a sense of solidarity in the kitchen, a sense that no matter how harsh the outside world may be, inside the house, there is unity. The daily chores that accompany food preparation are as much a part of life as the food itself. In the morning, after the fire is started, the first task is to prepare what little food remains from the previous day. The morning meal often consists of simple ingredients, perhaps some stale bread, dried herbs, or a small amount of salted meat, cooked with dried vegetables to create a warm, filling stew. The process is slow and deliberate, as the cold leaves little room for speed or carelessness. Every movement is measured, every action focused on making the most of the limited resources available. In the village, food is never wasted. Every leftover scrap of food is saved and repurposed. The bones from the meat are boiled for broth. The ends of vegetables are chopped and added to the stew, and even the crusts of bread are collected and dried for later use. Nothing goes to waste in this environment. The need to preserve and stretch every meal is a survival instinct, one that has been ingrained over generations. The preparation of bread is a ritual in many homes. The dough is simple flour, water, and salt, with a small amount of oil or fat added if it's available. The dough is kneaded with strength, worked into shape, and placed into the oven to bake. The heat from the oven, though small, offers comfort as it fills the room with warmth and the scent of freshly baked bread. The bread may not be soft or fluffy, but it is filling, and it provides the necessary energy to face the cold day ahead. The bread is often eaten with a bit of cheese or soup, depending on what is available, and it is shared by the entire family. It is the sustenance that carries them through the long winter days, the backbone of every meal. While the bread bakes, other chores are completed. The fire must be stoked to ensure that there's enough heat for cooking. The water must be boiled for tea, a staple of the daily routine, and the dishes must be washed. The preparation of food is never a simple task. It is a series of small actions that must be done carefully and efficiently. Each task, no matter how small, is part of the larger effort to survive. As the day continues and the fire burns steadily, the warmth from the hearth seems to fill the room with a sense of calm. Yet, this moment of comfort is fleeting. The harsh reality of winter remains in the background, always present, reminding everyone that the next meal is never truly guaranteed. The need for food is constant, and its scarcity weighs heavily on the minds of those who live here. Despite the community's best efforts, the supplies are limited, and the question of how long they can make the food last is never far from anyone's thoughts. Food becomes more than just sustenance during these months. It becomes a symbol of resilience, a marker of survival. Every meal is a reminder of the work put in months before, during the harvest season, when grain was carefully stored, vegetables dried, and meat salted. The simple act of eating, once something most people take for granted, becomes a victory, a small, everyday triumph against the cold. It is a quiet affirmation of life, a declaration that the will to survive is alive and well, even in the face of such brutal conditions. The emotional toll of scarcity is something the people of Eastern Anatolia carry with them every day. When the food begins to dwindle, there is a sense of unease that settles over the household. The cold has already taken so much, and the thought of running out of food, too, is a burden too heavy to bear. Each meal, no matter how small or humble, is a reminder of the finite nature of their resources. There's no space for extravagance, no room for waste. Every scrap is saved, every morsel cherished. In the evenings, when the family sits down to eat, the table is filled with whatever they've managed to gather or preserve. The meal may not be much, a few pieces of salted meat, some dried vegetables, and a small portion of bread, but it is enough. Enough to keep hunger at bay. Enough to fuel the body for another day in the harsh cold. The sharing of food becomes a silent bond between family members. The cold may isolate them from the rest of the world, but the act of breaking bread together forms a connection that runs deeper than the physical need for sustenance. The eldest often speaks in quiet tones as the meal is shared, telling stories of past winters when the family had more, when the land was kinder, when food wasn't so hard to come by. But these stories are not just tales of hardship. They are also stories of resilience, of families who survived the same brutal winters, who fought against the cold, the hunger, and the isolation to make it through another season. These stories serve as a reminder of the strength that runs through the veins of the community, a strength that has been passed down through the generations. The fire may flicker, and the food may be scarce, but the spirit of survival remains as strong as ever. In this harsh environment, no one survives alone. The survival of one family is intertwined with the survival of the entire community. In the small, tight-knit villages of Eastern Anatolia, there is no room for individualism in the face of the cold. Everyone depends on each other. The cold, with its relentless force, might isolate them physically, but it also brings them closer together emotionally. The shared struggle for survival unites them, forming bonds that are stronger than any external forces. The exchange of food and resources becomes a vital part of life during the winter months. Families share what they have with their neighbors, knowing that when times are tough, they will also be the recipients of such kindness. The villagers help one another gather firewood, deliver food, and offer whatever assistance they can. In this way, the sense of community becomes a lifeline. The resources may be scarce, but they are shared freely. If one family has a bit more food, it will be distributed to those who have less. If one household has more firewood, it is shared with others who are running low. The exchange is not done out of obligation, but out of a mutual understanding that survival is only possible through collective effort. The importance of sharing goes beyond food and firewood. It extends to knowledge, advice, and emotional support. Families gather around the fire not just to eat, but to share their worries, their fears, and their hopes. The evenings are often filled with conversation, with quiet laughter, and with the sharing of stories that have been passed down for generations. In these moments, the hardships of the day are forgotten, replaced by a sense of camaraderie and mutual respect. In the face of the cold, the village becomes more than just a collection of homes. It becomes a lifeline, a network of support where every person plays a role in ensuring that no one is left behind. Even in the most dire of circumstances, the people know that they can rely on their neighbors just as their neighbors can rely on them. This mutual support creates a web of resilience that extends throughout the community, ensuring that no one faces the winter alone. Food preparation in Eastern Anatolia is a process that requires patience, skill, and a deep understanding of the resources at hand. There is no room for waste or excess, no opportunity for indulgence. Every meal is made with what is available: salted meats, dried vegetables, and stored grains. But while the ingredients may be humble, the act of preparing the meal is anything but. The first task of the day is often the simplest but most essential: boiling water. A kettle of water must be boiled for tea, a staple of daily life in the village. The kettle is placed on the stove or directly on the fire, and the waiting begins. The steam rises from the kettle, filling the room with the comforting scent of hot water. The tea is an important part of the daily routine, a small pleasure in the midst of the cold. It's a tradition that brings the family together each morning, a warm drink that signals the beginning of the day's work. After the water is boiled and the tea is served, the next step is to begin preparing breakfast. Breakfast is usually a simple affair: leftover bread from the previous day, perhaps with a bit of cheese or salted meat. The bread, though stale, is still filling. It is a reminder of the work that has gone into it: kneading, baking, and preserving the dough until it can be used. There is something deeply satisfying in eating a meal that has been carefully prepared, even if the ingredients are sparse. The meat, now salted and dried, must be carefully cut and prepared. The process of cutting the meat is one that requires precision. The pieces are sliced thinly, enough to stretch the meal, but not too thin that they lose their flavor. The salted meat is often cooked in a stew, combined with dried vegetables, to make the most of what little is available. The stew is simple but hearty, the flavors of the meat and vegetables melding together to create a rich, filling dish. It's the kind of meal that warms you from the inside out, a meal that nourishes both the body and the soul. Despite the simplicity of the meal, there is a sense of pride in its preparation. The people of Eastern Anatolia have learned to make the most of what they have, to take pride in even the smallest meal. Every ingredient, no matter how basic, is treated with care. Every step in the cooking process is deliberate, a ritual that has been passed down for generations. The meal may not be elaborate, but it is satisfying, and it is enough to sustain the body through the long, cold day. After the meal is prepared, the chores continue. The fire must be stoked to ensure that it doesn't die out. The wood must be chopped and gathered, the dishes cleaned, and the home tidied. Each task, no matter how small, is part of the larger effort to survive. The chores are done with purpose, done because they are necessary to ensure that the family can make it through another day. The moment you step outside, the air hits you like a wall. It's not a gentle embrace of winter's chill, but a savage blast, sharp and unforgiving. The wind, the real villain in Eastern Anatolia's winters, strikes first, cutting through your clothes as though they were made of paper. The biting gusts twist through every seam, making every layer of clothing feel insufficient, as if the cold is seeking you out, trying to seep into every exposed part of your body. There's no time to waste. You can't hesitate. Once you step out into the open, there's only the immediate sense of necessity that drives you forward. Every breath feels heavy, like breathing in shards of ice. The cold penetrates your skin, numbing the face and hands, but it's a familiar feeling. There's no time for discomfort. You have work to do. The animals need tending to. The firewood needs gathering. And, most importantly, survival demands that you face the elements head on, no matter how they lash out at you. The snow is deep, and as you walk, it feels as though you are wading through a sea of white. Each step is a battle against the heavy layers that have accumulated overnight. The snow crunches beneath your boots, but each step forward is labored, the weight of the snow pushing back against your movements. With every stride, the cold sinks deeper into your bones, but you push forward. You must. The animals need to be fed, the sheep and goats huddled in their pens, the cows waiting for fresh hay. The livestock, unable to seek shelter from the elements, are entirely reliant on you, their caretaker, to ensure that they are fed and kept safe. But the snow is not your only enemy. The wind is worse. It howls across the plains, throwing flurries of snow into your face, stinging your eyes and numbing your skin. The wind has a way of sneaking into every crack, finding its way under your clothing, chilling your body from the inside out. Your eyes water as the gusts blow, and every movement feels like you're fighting against an invisible force. You have to keep your head down and press forward. There's no room for stopping, no time for hesitation. The wind doesn't care how you feel. It will continue to blow, fierce and relentless, until you make it through the storm. The path is not marked. There are no clear tracks to follow in the snow, only the faintest impressions left by the previous day's movements. Every so often, you pause, squinting through the snowstorm, trying to make out the faint outlines of the barn or the stable where the animals are kept. But it's hard to tell where the earth ends and the sky begins. The world outside has been reduced to a blur of white and gray, a blinding wash of snow and wind that robs you of the ability to see more than a few feet ahead. Every step forward is an act of blind faith, knowing that the barn, the stable, the warm shelter is somewhere ahead, but with no certainty of how far. It's easy to forget what day it is out here, what hour. Time bends in the snowstorm. There is only the moment, the present, the task at hand. Every step feels like a small victory, a defiance of the cold that tries to swallow you whole. The wind howls louder, the snow thickens, and the world seems smaller, more intimate. There is no escape. The only option is to press on, to keep going, to do what needs to be done, no matter how fiercely the elements fight back. Your hands, despite the gloves, are freezing, and your feet, despite the thick boots, feel numb. But it's not enough to stop. You can't. The animals are depending on you. You feel the weight of their reliance on your shoulders. This is not just about survival. It's about fulfilling the role you were born to play in this harsh, unforgiving world. And so, through the snow and wind, you keep going, step by slow, heavy step. The snow-covered plains of Eastern Anatolia stretch out endlessly, a vast, unbroken sheet of white that seems to swallow the horizon. The land, though beautiful in its stark, unrelenting way, is a harsh and unyielding place. The snow transforms the landscape into something both serene and hostile. On a clear day, the snow glistens under the weak light of the sun, its surface sparkling, as if the earth itself is covered in diamonds. The mountains in the distance rise like ancient sentinels, their jagged peaks cutting through the sky, while the valleys below remain shrouded in a thick, frozen silence. But today, as you trudge through the snow, the landscape feels entirely different. The beauty of the plains is hidden behind a veil of snow and wind. The view is obscured by the swirling flurries that dance across the land, making the ground difficult to discern from the sky. The world feels closed in, suffocating under the weight of the snowstorm. There are no roads, no clear path to follow, only a seemingly endless stretch of white that goes on and on. Every step you take is a reminder of the isolation that this environment imposes, of the struggle to move through a world that is both breathtaking and unforgiving. The silence that follows a snowstorm is oppressive. When the wind dies down, there is a strange stillness that fills the air, a calm that can almost be heard. The usual sounds of nature, the rustling of leaves, the chirping of birds are drowned out by the snow and the wind. It's a world that feels as though it's been frozen in time, locked away in a perpetual winter, where life is reduced to the smallest, most essential movements. There are no signs of civilization here. The snow hides everything. The houses, the barns, the pathways, everything becomes a blur, indistinguishable from the rest of the landscape. The world outside the house becomes a vast, empty expanse, a place where only the most resilient can survive. The land itself is indifferent to human existence, and it demands respect. In these harsh conditions, there is no room for arrogance. The snow and the wind will remind you, quickly and decisively, that nature is the ultimate force in this land. The beauty of the landscape lies in its rawness. It is untamed, unyielding, and, in many ways, unforgiving. Yet, there is something compelling about it, something that calls to those who live here. The people of Eastern Anatolia have learned to respect the land, to work with it, and to endure it. It is not just a place to live, it is a place that shapes who they are, that forces them to become stronger, more resilient, and more connected to one another. As the snow continues to fall, the emotional weight of isolation becomes more pronounced. The wind is relentless, howling through the barren landscape, making everything feel distant, unreachable. The cold, the wind, the endless white everything seems to separate you from the rest of the world, as if the very environment is designed to isolate you. The people of Eastern Anatolia have become accustomed to this isolation, but it does not make it any easier. The emotional toll of living in such a remote, harsh environment is significant, and it leaves its mark on every person who survives here. There is a quiet solitude in the snow-covered plains. The land, though full of life, feels empty, hollow. The vastness of the snowfield, stretching as far as the eye can see, creates a feeling of separation, as if the world beyond the mountains is inaccessible, out of reach. There is no one for miles. The small village where the fire burns and the meals are shared is a small oasis in the vast, cold expanse of the land. But even within the safety of the home, the harshness of the outside world is always present, always looming just beyond the door. The isolation can be both a physical and emotional burden. The cold not only separates you from the outside world, but also from yourself. It forces you inward, making every moment feel more intense. The silence that follows the snowstorm is deafening, and in that silence, you are left alone with your thoughts. There is no one else to distract you, no sounds to fill the void. The vast, empty plains remind you of how small you are in the grand scheme of things, how fragile life can be when faced with such overwhelming forces. But in this isolation, there is also strength. The people of Eastern Anatolia have learned to find comfort in their solitude, to embrace it as a part of life. They know that survival is not just about physical endurance, but also mental resilience. The isolation teaches them to rely on themselves, to find inner strength when there is no one else to turn to. The emotional solitude, though heavy, also cultivates a deep sense of community. The people may be isolated physically, but emotionally, they are bound together by the shared experience of survival. As the morning stretches on, the snow continues to fall, covering the landscape with an even more overwhelming blanket of white. The wind whips through the mountains, howling like a wild creature, carrying with it biting cold and flurries that sting the skin. The wind seems to have no mercy, a constant presence that chases you, always nipping at your heels, making every movement feel like an uphill battle. It cuts through the layers of clothing, no matter how many you pile on, making every step feel like you're wading through ice, through nature itself fighting back against you. There's something almost alive about the wind here. It doesn't just blow, it presses in, insistent and unrelenting. It pushes against you, making it harder to move, to carry the firewood back to the house, to tend to the animals, to even breathe. Every gust feels like it's reaching inside, finding every crack, every weak point, to make you feel its presence. You can hear it coming before it hits first, a faint whistle, then a rising howl that drowns out the world around you. In these moments, the wind dominates the landscape, dictating what you can and cannot do. It forces you to keep moving, to hurry, to fight back against its icy fingers, or risk being swallowed by the cold. In this environment, nothing is ever easy. Every task becomes a battle against the elements. The wind howls louder, and the snow piles higher, and yet you must continue, because the animals still need care. They still need food and shelter. The herd must be fed, the barn cleaned, and the firewood gathered. These things won't wait, no matter how fierce the storm becomes. The cold will not relent, and the snow will continue to fall. But it's your duty, your responsibility, to keep fighting. You press forward, step by step, through the thick snow. It's not just the physical act of moving that takes its toll. It's the mental exhaustion, the sense of never being free from the cold, the constant awareness of how fragile survival is. Each gust of wind serves as a reminder that at any moment, nature can take it all away. The fragility of life in the mountains becomes starkly clear with every step you take through the snow. You can never be too comfortable. You can never let your guard down. The weather, the landscape, the land itself, they all remind you that survival is a constant fight. The responsibility of caring for the livestock is one of the most demanding, physically exhausting tasks during the winter. The animals depend on you for survival, just as much as you depend on them. Sheep, goats, cows, these creatures are not just sources of food or income, but integral parts of life. In the winter, their care becomes a matter of life and death, as they are just as vulnerable to the harsh conditions as the people who tend to them. When you step outside to care for the animals, the cold hits immediately. The snow, now several inches deep, makes every step harder, as if the land itself is trying to drag you down. The animals huddle together in their pens, seeking shelter from the storm, but they still need food, water, and attention. The pens are covered in snow, and the hay or feed you bring is quickly buried under the snowdrifts. You can feel the weight of the cold in the animals, their fur matted with snow, their breath visible in the air as they stamp their hooves, their bodies seeking warmth wherever they can find it. Feeding the livestock isn't just about providing food. It's about ensuring their survival. You must break the ice that forms on their water troughs so they can drink. You must check on them regularly, making sure they're not exposed to the worst of the elements, that they're not suffering from the cold or the lack of food. It's hard work. The physical exhaustion is compounded by the cold that seeps into your skin, numbing your fingers, stiffening your joints. The weight of the task feels endless. Each hour spent in the cold, each step in the snow, each moment of tending to the animals. It's a grind, a never-ending task that must be repeated every day. And yet, there is a sense of purpose in it all. The animals depend on you, and you depend on them. In this remote world, they are your companions, your livelihood, your connection to the outside world. The livestock are not just animals, they are family. They are survival. When you step back inside the house, tired and cold to the bone, it's the knowledge that the animals are safe, fed, and warm that brings a sense of accomplishment. The cold may continue to howl outside. The wind may never stop. But in this small moment, there is peace. The work, though difficult, has been done. The animals are still here, still alive, still part of the world. The vast expanse of snow that surrounds you is both breathtaking and terrifying. The snow, so pure and white, covers everything. The hills are blanketed with it. The trees are heavy with snow that weighs down their limbs. The land, once marked by rugged stone and sweeping grasslands, is now a uniform sheet of white, stretching as far as the eye can see. The mountains rise in the distance, their peaks hidden by the swirling snowstorm. The landscape, though beautiful in its stark simplicity, is a constant reminder of the unforgiving nature of the world you live in. The beauty of the snow-covered plains is undeniable. When the snow first falls, everything seems new, untouched. The world is quieter in the snow, muffled by its soft white blanket. It's as if the land itself is holding its breath. The light, though pale and weak, reflects off the snow, giving everything a surreal, dreamlike quality. The quiet stillness of the landscape, the beauty of the snow clinging to every surface, offers a brief moment of peace. It's a world frozen in time, a place where the cold is both awe-inspiring and overwhelming. But that beauty comes with a cost. The vast, snow-covered plains are unforgiving. The landscape doesn't care how beautiful it is, it will bury you if you let it. The snow can cover paths, making it nearly impossible to find your way. The cold can freeze the unprepared, turning a moment of awe into a struggle for survival. The wind, which blows down from the mountains with ruthless power, has no mercy. The snowstorm can blind you, disorient you, turn the landscape into a maze. The beauty of the snow is fleeting. The cold doesn't care how beautiful the world is. It will claim it for its own. The mountains in the distance stand tall and imposing, their jagged peaks cutting into the sky. These mountains are both a source of beauty and peril. They offer protection from the harsh winds that blow down from the higher altitudes, but they also act as a barrier, making it difficult to travel, to access supplies, or to reach other villages. The mountains create a sense of isolation, a feeling of being cut off from the rest of the world. They serve as both guardians and prison bars, keeping you in this frozen expanse, with only the animals, the village, and the elements for company. The isolation of Eastern Anatolia is felt deeply in the winter months. When the snow falls, the land becomes even more remote, more disconnected from the rest of the world. The village is small, tucked away in a valley, and it is often cut off from the rest of civilization for days or weeks at a time. The snow can block roads, making travel impossible. The wind howls, creating snowdrifts that prevent anyone from leaving or entering the village. The cold, the wind, and the snow can create a sense of solitude that is hard to shake. Inside the house, the cold still lingers, and though the warmth of the fire offers comfort, it is not enough to erase the isolation. The people are surrounded by snow, surrounded by cold, with no real way to reach out beyond the village. The wind howls, the snow falls, and it feels as though the world has shrunk down to the size of the home, the barn, the pen. There's a sense of being trapped, of being caught in a world where survival is the only thing that matters. There is no escape from the cold, no reprieve from the isolation. The people of Eastern Anatolia live with this solitude, knowing that the weather will not relent and that they must face it alone. But there is something strangely beautiful in that solitude. It brings people together in a way that other environments cannot. The isolation, while heavy, also forces connection. It makes the act of surviving together even more meaningful. The shared struggle to survive, to keep warm, to feed the animals, to maintain the hearth, forms the foundation of relationships in these villages. The people may be physically isolated, but their bonds are stronger than the cold that surrounds them. The isolation brought by the snow is not only felt physically, it also extends into the emotional and social realms. In such a remote place, every interaction takes on greater significance, as people are forced to lean on one another for survival. The harsh weather does not only challenge the body, it challenges the spirit as well. The solitude and the isolation can lead to moments of reflection and, at times, even emotional strain. There are no distractions here, no easy ways to escape the constant reminder of how fragile life is. The cold forces you to confront the most basic human needs: warmth, sustenance, and companionship. In the small Kurdish villages of Eastern Anatolia, where the majority of the inhabitants are related, the closeness of family becomes a source of both comfort and tension. The shared experience of facing the elements, of surviving together, strengthens the bond between families but can also lead to moments of frustration. It's a delicate balance between collaboration and exhaustion. There are no extended breaks or holidays to look forward to. It's a constant push against nature, and it can wear even the most resilient individuals thin. In these households, it is the unspoken understanding of shared hardship that binds people together. Everyone is involved in the daily battle against the cold, whether it's chopping wood, tending to the fire, or making sure the food supply lasts. There is little room for individual selfishness or complaints because survival depends on teamwork. The isolation of the environment turns family gatherings into a moment of unity, but it also makes the moments of silence feel heavier. When the storm outside rages and the fire inside flickers weakly, the silence can be deafening. The weight of shared solitude and collective survival rests on the shoulders of those who live here. The communal spirit is vital, especially during those bleak winter nights when the winds howl and the cold infiltrates the walls of the house. People huddle together not just for warmth but for strength. They gather around the hearth, passing time with stories, old songs, or even simple, quiet companionship. These moments become not just survival tactics, but opportunities for connection, for recharging the emotional batteries that the cold relentlessly depletes. The laughter shared around the fire may seem trivial to outsiders, but in these circumstances, it is a necessary balm. It provides comfort, strengthens bonds, and helps lift the weight of the isolation. But this is also the time for reflection. When there's nothing left to do but sit by the fire and wait for the storm to pass, the mind has a tendency to wander. The isolation feels more pronounced in these moments. The snow outside is a constant reminder of how far removed they are from the rest of the world. And the closer the family is, the more pressure there is to meet everyone's needs. With little to offer beyond shared work, meals, and companionship, it's easy for the strain of survival to lead to moments of tension, even among those who love each other most. Still, this emotional strain is something that most understand and silently accept. The weight of these long winters is not only carried physically, but emotionally as well. The people in these villages know each other's routines, their habits, and their stories. They know when someone is struggling, when the exhaustion of battling the elements has worn them down. And while the cold is relentless, the knowledge that they are not facing it alone is what keeps the spirits of the people from breaking entirely. While the cold, the wind, and the snow are physical forces that can be managed with the proper tools, preparation, and effort, the psychological toll of living in isolation is harder to escape. The sense of being cut off from the rest of the world, of being surrounded by miles and miles of snow, with no escape, presses down on the soul. Each day, the storm rages outside, and the knowledge that you are trapped in this frozen world without relief is overwhelming. At night, when the fire is dying down and the wind is at its worst, the solitude feels almost unbearable. There's a deep silence in the air, punctuated only by the sound of the wind slamming against the windows. The house, though filled with the warmth of the hearth and the presence of loved ones, can feel like a small, confined space, a refuge and a prison all at once. The walls feel closer, the roof feels lower, and the weight of the cold presses down on every inch of the house. The darkness outside seems infinite, and the thought of venturing back into the snowstorm to tend to the livestock or gather firewood is daunting. But the real toll comes from the solitude of it all. In the evening, when the family is gathered around the fire, the room feels safe. But as the wind howls outside and the night drags on, there is the distinct feeling of being trapped in a timeless, endless winter. Days blend into one another. The daily routine of tending to the animals, collecting wood, cooking the same meals, becomes a monotonous cycle. The sun sets early, leaving the darkness to stretch on for what feels like hours. The lack of daylight and the constant battle against the cold can make even the brightest spirits feel like they're being slowly worn down. This is the nature of life in Eastern Anatolia. The environment forces the people to endure in silence. The world outside might seem vast and free, but here, life is reduced to survival. It's a mental battle as much as it is a physical one. There is no escape, no way to disconnect from the challenges of living in a frozen world. And while the people continue to push through, to fight against the elements, the weight of isolation takes a toll. It is a mental resilience as much as it is physical, and in moments of quiet reflection, Even the most hardened hearts must admit that the fight is a long and lonely one. The spiritual toll of living in such a harsh, isolated environment is something that is deeply felt in the silence. With little in the way of modern distractions, no radios, no televisions, no bustling streets or communities, life here is dominated by nature's rhythms. The cold, the wind, and the snow become constant companions, and the isolation forces the people to turn inward. There is little to distract the mind, no easy entertainment to break up the monotony of the day. At night, when the winds howl outside and the fire casts flickering shadows on the walls, the stillness of the house allows thoughts to surface. The landscape, the isolation, the never-ending struggle against the elements, they all force a person to reflect on the meaning of it all. There is little in the way of luxuries here, and no easy way to escape the harshness of life. But in this solitude, there is also an opportunity to find peace. The connection to nature, to the land, becomes more pronounced. The snow-covered plains, the towering mountains, the wind that cuts through everything, they are not just obstacles. They are a part of life, shaping it, defining it. The quiet of the land, while lonely, also brings a kind of clarity. It forces you to focus on what really matters: survival, community, and the strength to keep going when everything seems against you. In these long, quiet moments, when the snow continues to fall and the world outside seems to vanish into the storm, people here find solace in the simple act of enduring. There is comfort in the familiar routine, in the act of doing what needs to be done, even when the outside world seems too far away. The emotional toll of isolation becomes part of life's rhythm. And though it's hard, though it's taxing, it also brings a kind of strength, the strength to endure, to continue, and to survive another day in this frozen, isolated world. In Eastern Anatolia, survival is not just a physical act, it's a spiritual and cultural one. The harsh winters, the fierce winds, and the deep snow could easily overwhelm even the most prepared. But for the Kurdish people, there's more than just the cold to contend with. There's a deep, unshakable connection to their heritage, a spiritual resilience that has been passed down through generations. This connection to their culture, to the ancient practices and traditions of their people, is not merely a form of survival. It is their way of thriving in a world that demands everything from them. Every action, every gesture in the day-to-day life of a Kurdish family carries the weight of centuries of tradition. From the way the fire is stoked, to the way bread is baked, to the way stories are told, each ritual is a thread in the fabric of their survival. These traditions don't just preserve the past, they are a source of strength, resilience, and identity in the face of adversity. As winter sets in, and the landscape outside becomes a bleak, frozen wasteland, the Kurdish people retreat into their homes, but not into isolation. They turn to their cultural practices, which provide a sense of continuity, of connectedness. These traditions, though they may seem simple, like gathering around the fire, making bread together, or sharing stories, are essential for survival. They create a rhythm of life that the harshness of the cold cannot break. These practices are not just rituals. They are lifelines, providing comfort and a sense of purpose in a world that can sometimes feel overwhelmingly hostile. One of the most enduring practices is storytelling. The Kurdish people are known for their rich oral tradition, and these stories are as much a part of their daily life as food and shelter. As the wind howls outside and the snow piles higher, families gather around the fire to share stories, to pass down the knowledge and wisdom of their ancestors. These stories are not just entertainment, they are a way of preserving culture and identity. The tales of heroes, warriors, and ancestors who fought the cold, the elements, and the hardships of their time become part of the fabric of the community. These stories remind the people that they are not alone in their struggles. The heroes of these tales, though often facing impossible odds, always endure. They survive the harshest winters, overcome the deepest hardships, and live to tell their tales. In the telling of these stories, the Kurdish people are reminded of their strength, of their connection to the past, and of their ability to endure. These stories are not just entertainment, they are a reinforcement of the resilience that runs through their blood, a reinforcement that survival is possible. And even in the coldest of times, warmth can be found in community and culture. The simple act of gathering around the fire and listening to stories is, in itself, an act of defiance against the cold. It is a reminder that while the outside world may be hostile, the hearth, the family, and the shared traditions are a sanctuary. These cultural practices offer more than just survival. They offer a sense of belonging, of purpose. When the cold outside seems unbearable, it is these cultural rituals that provide the warmth needed to carry on. The long, dark nights of winter in Eastern Anatolia are not just an external reality. They are a metaphor for the emotional and spiritual isolation that often accompanies life in such a remote environment. The days are short, the sunlight scarce, and the night stretches on endlessly. In these long, quiet hours, when the storm outside howls and the fire inside flickers weakly, the people of Eastern Anatolia are left alone with their thoughts. These moments of solitude, though difficult, are also moments of reflection. The harshness of winter forces the people to turn inward, to face themselves in a way that the rest of the year does not allow. The cold outside seems to seep into the soul, bringing with it moments of introspection, of questioning, of searching for meaning in a world that is so often defined by struggle and survival. In these long winter nights, the people find themselves alone, not just with their families, but with their thoughts and their spirituality. For many, this time of reflection is not one of despair, but one of connection to something larger than themselves. The Kurdish people, deeply rooted in tradition and faith, often turn to spirituality in these times of solitude. In the quiet of the night, when the wind is howling outside and the fire is the only light in the house, they find solace in prayer, in quiet reflection, in the rituals that have been passed down through generations. In the absence of external distractions, spirituality becomes a way to ground oneself. It's a way to reconnect with the land, with the ancestors, and with the eternal cycle of life and death. The people of Eastern Anatolia find peace in these quiet moments of spiritual reflection, in the belief that there is a higher purpose to the hardships they endure. They are not alone. Their faith, their traditions, and their cultural practices provide the strength to face each day, no matter how harsh the weather, no matter how lonely the nights. These moments of introspection bring a deep sense of comfort, even in the coldest and darkest of times. In the silence of the storm, the people find a sense of belonging to something larger than themselves. It's a sense of peace that does not come from the world around them, but from within. The fire may flicker low, the wind may howl outside, but in these moments of quiet reflection, The heart is warmed by the knowledge that survival is not just about the physical battle against the cold, it's about the strength of the spirit, the resilience of the soul. Despite the severe conditions of Eastern Anatolia, the Kurdish people have learned to adapt and even find joy in the simplest of things. The extreme cold, the endless snow, and the isolation might seem like they would drain all sense of enjoyment from life, but the people here have discovered a quiet joy in the rituals and routines that have been passed down through generations. In a place where survival is the priority, joy is not found in luxury, but in the small, everyday moments that make life worth living. There is joy in the warmth of the fire, in the laughter shared over a simple meal, in the stories told by the hearth. The people of Eastern Anatolia do not seek extravagant pleasures. They find comfort in the basics of life. A warm meal, a cozy home, the company of family and friends, these are the treasures they cherish most. One of the simplest joys comes from the act of sitting together around the fire. It may seem insignificant to outsiders, but for the Kurdish people, this is the heart of life in winter. As the wind howls outside and the snow piles higher, the warmth of the fire offers more than just heat. It offers connection. It's a time for storytelling, for quiet companionship, for sharing memories and laughter. This communal experience is vital for maintaining a sense of community, a sense of belonging. Even in the face of such adversity, there is laughter in the air. The people of Eastern Anatolia have learned to laugh at the absurdity of their situation, to find humor in the small things that make life difficult. The cold may be relentless, but they find a way to make light of it. They joke about the snow that piles up higher than the walls, about the animals that refuse to stay in their pens, about the endless cycles of chopping firewood and gathering food. These moments of levity are not just distractions, they are essential. They remind the people that even in the harshest of times, there is room for joy. Adaptation isn't just about surviving the cold, it's about finding joy in the act of survival. The Kurdish people have learned to live with the cold, to embrace it as part of their lives, and to find comfort and connection in the simplest of pleasures. The small joys are the ones that matter most. A warm meal, a cozy corner by the fire, a shared laugh with a loved one. In the face of the overwhelming cold, these simple moments are the ones that sustain them. The deep connection to culture and heritage in Eastern Anatolia is not merely a form of nostalgia. It is a vital part of how the Kurdish people endure their struggles. The traditions that have been passed down through generations are not seen as quaint relics of a bygone era, but as powerful tools for survival. In this remote corner of the world, culture is not just something to be celebrated on festive days. It is woven into the very fabric of daily life. The rituals of cooking, storytelling, and gathering around the hearth are not merely habits, they are lifelines. As the cold wind rages outside, the small, tightly knit communities in the villages of Eastern Anatolia find strength in the continuation of these practices. When there is little to comfort them besides the warmth of the fire and the companionship of their families, their cultural practices become a constant source of solace and hope. These practices are not just about passing the time, they are the fabric of the life they lead, woven with threads of resilience, endurance, and survival. Take, for example, the simple act of preparing the evening meal. It's a task that has been done by women for generations, and while it may seem mundane to the outsider, for the Kurdish family, it is a ritual of survival and care. As the women gather ingredients, dried meats, vegetables, grains, they are not just cooking dinner. They are passing down knowledge, skills, and wisdom that have been honed over generations. The recipes may seem simple stews, soups, and breads, but they are rich with meaning. Each dish prepared is a tribute to the ancestors who faced the same hardships, to the resilience that has carried the Kurdish people through centuries of adversity. The methods of cooking themselves reflect a deep understanding of the land and the seasons. Ingredients are preserved and used efficiently, and nothing is wasted. This cultural practice of utilizing every resource to its fullest potential teaches the younger generations not just how to cook, but how to value everything they have. There is a deep sense of gratitude embedded in the simple act of preparing a meal, and it fosters a connection not just to the food, but to the earth and the seasons that provide it. The stories told around the fire at night further reinforce this bond to heritage. These stories are not just entertainment, they are the embodiment of the Kurdish people's history and identity. The tales of legendary heroes and fierce warriors, of struggle and triumph, serve as a reminder that survival has always been a battle. These stories remind the people that they come from a long line of resilient individuals who fought the same cold and endured the same hardships. In telling these stories, they are not only keeping the past alive, but are strengthening the cultural bonds that hold the community together in the present. These stories often have an air of humor and irony, where the hardships are not presented as solemn, but as challenges to be faced with strength and wit. The stories of ancestors, sometimes exaggerated for comedic effect, provide both entertainment and a sense of catharsis. The humor that infuses these tales is a survival tactic in itself, a way of coping with the harshness of life. It allows the people to laugh at the same difficulties that might otherwise overwhelm them. The message is clear. No matter how harsh the world may seem, there is always a way to endure, often through humor, solidarity, and the strength of community. As the days stretch on and the snow piles higher, the deep isolation can weigh heavily on the soul. The long, dark nights leave little room for distraction, and the mind, like the body, can grow weary. In these times, the Kurdish people turn inward to their spirituality and faith. The land itself, harsh and unyielding, demands a connection to something greater than oneself. In this remote part of the world, spirituality provides solace, a reason to keep going when the cold and isolation seem too much to bear. For many, this time of year offers moments of quiet introspection. In the stillness of the night, when the wind howls and the snow falls in thick layers, people find comfort in prayer, in quiet reflection, and in the rituals of their faith. These moments are not just religious acts, they are grounding, centering, providing comfort and peace in a world that often feels too big, too cold, too unforgiving. The connection to faith is deeply woven into the daily life of the Kurdish people. Their spirituality is not confined to a church or temple, but is present in every act they perform. It is in the way they speak to one another, the way they treat their animals, and the way they gather around the hearth. The warmth of the fire is not just physical warmth, it is the warmth of community, of shared spirituality. The Kurdish people take solace in the belief that there is a greater purpose to their lives, one that transcends the trials they face. The cold winds that blow across the plains are seen not as a force that opposes them, but as a challenge, one that they are meant to overcome. The struggle against the elements becomes a test of faith, a test of endurance. And when they gather at night, with the fire flickering low and the wind howling outside, the shared belief in something greater than themselves helps them cope with the isolation, the cold, and the uncertainty of life in this frozen landscape. The people of Eastern Anatolia have learned to adapt in ways that are both remarkable and humbling. While the cold may take its toll on their bodies, it cannot take their spirit. The Kurdish people have discovered that, despite the harsh conditions, there is joy to be found in the simplest of things. The little rituals, the daily routines, and the shared experiences of life around the fire, all these things help to create a sense of comfort and belonging in a world that often feels harsh and unyielding. One of the simplest joys is found in food. While the meals may be simple steamed vegetables, bread, and the occasional piece of salted meat, they are prepared with care and shared with love. The act of eating together becomes a celebration, a moment to reconnect with family and community. The warmth of the fire and the company of loved ones make even the simplest meal feel like a feast. The small joys are appreciated, and in many ways, it is these moments of shared happiness that sustain them through the winter. Storytelling, too, provides a sense of connection. The act of sharing stories is not just about passing time, it is a way of linking the present to the past, of ensuring that the experiences of one generation are carried into the next. These stories often contain both wisdom and humor, teaching lessons about survival, resilience, and the importance of community. The laughter that accompanies these stories helps to break the tension, bringing light to the darkest of days. In this way, the people of Eastern Anatolia find joy not in luxury, but in the beauty of connection, in the warmth of the hearth, and in the simple act of being together. The fire, the bread, the stories, all these things are integral to the Kurdish way of life. They are not just distractions from the cold, they are ways to endure it, to find warmth in the darkest of times. In a world where the cold and the isolation can feel overwhelming, the strength of the community, the warmth of the fire, and the joy of shared experiences are what keep them going. In Eastern Anatolia, there is a profound belief that survival isn't just about enduring the present, it's about connecting with the past. The stories of ancestors, the traditions of their forebears, are more than just history. They are the foundation upon which today's survival is built. The Kurdish people understand that in the face of such a harsh environment, the only way to endure is to draw on the strength and wisdom that has been passed down through the generations. When the wind howls through the narrow valleys and the snow piles higher, the people gather together to reinforce the unspoken bond that ties them to their ancestors. The traditions and stories of those who have faced these same elements before are retold as if they were happening right now. These stories become a guide for survival, a reminder that no matter how bad things may seem, the strength of the past can light the way forward. Each family has its own set of practices, its own unique rituals that have been carried through generations. These rituals provide structure and meaning during the bleakest times. Every action, from lighting the fire to the preparation of meals, is an acknowledgement of the collective effort that has kept their people alive for centuries. In these moments, the connection to the past is not just emotional, it's physical. The acts of cooking, storytelling, and gathering around the fire are all rooted in the deep wisdom of the generations before them. The resilience of the Kurdish spirit is embedded in their culture, It's not just about fighting the cold, it's about doing so with dignity, with respect for the land, and with a deep understanding of the cyclical nature of life. The winter will eventually give way to spring, and the stories, the traditions, and the strength of the ancestors will continue to guide them. In a way, every time the fire is lit, every time a meal is shared, they are participating in an age-old ritual of survival, a ritual that has been tested and refined over centuries of harsh winters. As night falls over Eastern Anatolia and the cold deepens, there is a sense of spiritual solace that comes with the darkness. The long, dark nights, though isolating, also provide the perfect opportunity for introspection and spiritual reflection. In these moments, the silence of the snow-covered plains offers a canvas for thoughts and prayers. And for many, this stillness is not only a reminder of their isolation, but a reminder of their deep connection to something greater than themselves. In the absence of modern distractions, the people of Eastern Anatolia are able to turn inward and focus on their spirituality. It is during these long nights, when the wind screams outside and the snow falls steadily, that many of the elders engage in prayer. They light candles in the corners of their homes, saying silent prayers for strength, for the safety of their families, and for the well-being of the animals that depend on them. These prayers are not long, formal rituals. They are quiet, personal moments, like whispers in the dark, offering solace and connection to the divine. Spirituality in this region is a deeply ingrained part of life. It is not something done on a whim, nor is it confined to certain times of the day. It is woven into every action. The act of preparing food, gathering firewood, tending to the livestock, all of these are viewed through a spiritual lens. The people here believe that their actions are part of a larger, divinely guided journey. In the face of adversity, their faith becomes the thread that holds them together. It is their faith in their ancestors, their faith in each other, and their faith in the divine that gives them the strength to endure. During the coldest nights, when the wind cuts through the village like a blade, the families huddle together, often in silence, simply being present for one another. The warmth of the fire is a temporary relief, but the comfort of shared faith, shared belief, provides something deeper. It is in these quiet moments of prayer and reflection that the people draw strength not just from the fire or the food, but from their connection to something eternal, something larger than themselves. Even in the most severe conditions, the Kurdish people have found ways to adapt to the cold, learning to find joy in the simplest of things. Adaptation isn't just about physical survival, it's about mental and emotional survival. It's about learning to find contentment in the little victories, the small pleasures that make life worth living even in the harshest of circumstances. One of the greatest sources of joy comes from the shared experience of surviving together. The simple act of sitting by the fire, drinking tea, and listening to the crackling wood as it burns can feel like a small victory against the forces of nature. These moments of connection, moments of warmth and togetherness become priceless. The people of Eastern Anatolia don't take these moments for granted. They know how fleeting warmth can be, how quickly the fire can die down. So they savor it, appreciating every moment of light and heat that the fire provides. Storytelling, too, becomes a source of joy. The tales told around the fire are not just about survival, they are a celebration of the spirit. The elders pass down stories of triumph over adversity, of love and loss, of battles fought and won, of seasons endured. These stories are full of humor, irony, and wisdom. They remind the people that even in the toughest times, laughter and joy are still possible. The stories may be simple, but they carry a powerful message that life, no matter how difficult, is meant to be lived fully. The ability to laugh, to share a story, to connect with one another, these are the joys that define life in this harsh landscape. Children, too, play a role in adapting to the cold. The winter months may keep them inside, but they find ways to make the most of their situation. They help with small chores, assist with preparing food, and engage in games that are passed down through generations. Their laughter, even when muffled by the cold, is a reminder that despite the harsh conditions, the spirit of youth remains untarnished. The simplest games, whether it's pretending to herd sheep or playing tag by the fire, become a source of joy, a moment of respite from the isolation and cold. Even as the adults work tirelessly to ensure survival, whether it's gathering firewood, caring for the livestock, or preparing meals, they find moments of connection and joy in the routine. There's a beauty in the simplicity of these tasks. The act of breaking bread together, of sharing a meal that was lovingly prepared, becomes a form of celebration. The work done by each person, from gathering firewood to cleaning the barn, is a testament to their strength, to their ability to endure. It may not be glamorous work, but it is meaningful. It connects them to the land, to their heritage, and to each other. The rhythm of daily life in Eastern Anatolia may be dictated by the harshness of the winter, but it is also sustained by the small joys that people find in each other and in the rituals that give meaning to their lives. These rituals, simple though they may be, are powerful in their ability to ground the people, to remind them that even in the coldest and darkest of days, there is warmth to be found in the fire of family, community, and shared experience. Conclusion: the resilience of the Kurdish spirit. Final reflection on survival. The endurance of the Kurdish people. As the long winter days finally give way to the quiet, silent night, there's a deep, unspoken understanding that survival in Eastern Anatolia is not just about enduring the elements, it is about embracing them. The Kurdish people, living at the mercy of the wind, snow, and freezing temperatures, have mastered the art of enduring the harshest of conditions. Their resilience is not only physical but emotional, spiritual, and deeply cultural. The cold that seems to encircle their world is not a force that breaks them, it is one that shapes them. It challenges them, but it also defines the strength and unity that run through their veins. Survival here is not just a matter of living day by day, it is about thriving in the face of hardship. Every year, when the cold winds sweep through the mountains, when the snow blankets the plains and isolates the village from the outside world, the Kurdish people do not bow to nature's unrelenting forces. They rise up and meet it, not with defiance, but with quiet determination. There's no dramatic declaration of survival, no grand victory speech after every meal cooked over the fire, or after every piece of firewood gathered in the deep snow. Survival here is not glamorous. It is steadfast, persistent, and deeply rooted in the values of family, community, and culture. The Kurdish people survive because they do not fight the cold in isolation. They face the elements together. The strength of one is the strength of all, and the cold, though overwhelming, cannot crack the bonds that hold the community together. Family members work in harmony, each knowing their role, each contributing in ways that are often unseen but essential. These collective efforts are what ensure survival. No one is left to fight alone. The fire that warms the family hearth is not just a physical warmth, but a warmth that radiates from the unity of the people gathered around it. It is a bond forged by necessity, but also by love, respect, and shared history. This spirit of survival, this quiet endurance, is a reflection of the strength and unity that has sustained the Kurdish people through generations. Their survival through the harsh winters of Eastern Anatolia is not just about weathering the storm, it is about transforming the storm into a part of who they are. The cold seasons are not seen as obstacles, but as tests of endurance, and each test passed is a testament to the resilience embedded in their very identity. Every story told around the fire, every song sung, every moment of laughter shared in the face of adversity strengthens the foundation of their survival. The winter seasons are not just endured, they are lived through with purpose, with patience, and with grace. Quiet closure, the enduring warmth of the fire. As the day draws to a close, the village settles into a quiet stillness. The fire burns low, casting a soft, flickering glow on the walls. The wind outside continues to howl, but it feels distant now, as though it belongs to a different world. The snow, which had piled high throughout the day, now falls gently, like a soft, quiet blanket over the land. The cold is still there, but the warmth of the fire offers a peaceful resistance. Inside, the family gathers closer together. The exhaustion of the day lingers in the air, but there is a palpable sense of contentment, a deep satisfaction in having made it through another day. The children, tired but still full of energy, sit near the fire, their eyes drooping as they fight the pull of sleep. The adults, weary from the day's work, look to each other with silent acknowledgement of the shared struggle, of the shared strength that has seen them through another winter day. The warmth of the fire, the comfort of family, the soft hum of the wind outside. These are the moments that remind them of the beauty found even in the hardest of times. There is no need for grand gestures or words. The silence is filled with the understanding that they are in this together, that no matter how fierce the wind howls outside, they are safe in the warmth of their home. The fire is a symbol of the resilience that has carried them through the cold season, and it is also a promise of the days ahead. It may be dark now, but the light of the fire offers hope, offering a promise that spring will come, and with it, the warmth of the sun and the renewal of the land. The world outside may be vast and harsh, but inside, there is a sense of comfort, of home. The long nights are a time for reflection, for deep conversations or quiet companionship. The simple act of being together, of sharing this space, is enough to carry them through the coldest of nights. As the fire crackles, casting shadows on the walls, it is not just warmth that fills the room, but a deep, unspoken love. The fire is a reminder that, despite the cold, despite the hardship, they are here. They are enduring. They are surviving. And they will continue to do so because they have each other. The long nights in Eastern Anatolia may stretch endlessly, with the dark hours feeling almost infinite, but they are not filled with despair. Instead, they become a time for reflection, for connection, and for intimacy. The silence that fills the air, broken only by the wind howling outside or the occasional crackling of the fire, provides the perfect backdrop for contemplation. In the quiet solitude of the winter night, with the cold pressing against the walls, There is room for deep thoughts, thoughts that have been set aside during the busy hours of daylight, thoughts about family, tradition, life, and the trials they face together. The beauty of these nights lies in their simplicity. The work of the day is done, the struggle against the cold, the wind, and the snow has paused for a while. There are no more tasks left to do but to be. To be together, to sit in each other's company, to share the warmth of the fire, and to feel the comforting presence of those you love. The harsh winds outside may try to freeze the world, to isolate and consume, but inside, the act of simply being in the same room, sharing the same space, is enough to keep the isolation at bay. In these moments, there is a special kind of magic that unfolds, not the dramatic, flashy magic of stories or legends, but the quiet, enduring magic of connection. The act of sharing a room, sharing warmth, sharing silence, is powerful beyond measure. It is the most primal form of intimacy, the closeness that forms not in conversation, but in the shared experience of being alive together, in a place that demands resilience. As the fire burns low, the shadows it casts on the walls seem to dance, creating shapes and stories of their own. The light from the fire flickers, creating an ethereal glow that fills the room, and for a moment, it feels as though time itself has paused. The warmth from the fire is like a blanket for the soul, wrapping the family in comfort, in peace. Despite the cold that rattles the windows, despite the storm raging outside, here, in the safety of the house, there is no fear, no worry, just the soothing presence of loved ones and the quiet hum of the fire. When you look at the faces around you, you can see the weariness in their eyes, the tiredness from the day's work, from the constant struggle against the elements. The adults are exhausted, their bodies stiff from labor and the constant cold. But there is also a lightness in their eyes, a peace that comes with knowing they are together. The weight of survival, of enduring the relentless cold and wind, seems a little less heavy when shared. They are not fighting alone. There is strength in numbers, strength in the shared struggle, and in that shared struggle, a sense of deep love and gratitude blooms. The children, though tired, are still filled with a quiet energy. Their young faces glow in the firelight, their wide eyes reflecting the warmth and light. Their bodies curled up near the hearth, seeking comfort and safety in the warmth of their family. It is a time for stories. The elder members of the family begin to share their own recollections, tales of winters past, of hardships overcome, of lessons learned. These stories are often told with a knowing smile or a chuckle, despite the severity of the challenges faced. The humor that fills these tales is a reminder that life, even in its most difficult moments, is not just about survival, it is about living fully, with laughter, with lightness, with love. The beauty of the shared stories is not just in the telling but in the listening. There is something deeply fulfilling in simply being present in the company of others. No one needs to speak constantly. No one needs to offer profound insights. The act of listening is enough. The stories themselves, passed down through generations, are part of what holds this family, this community, together. These tales become the lifeblood of the family, weaving their collective experiences into something greater than themselves. They are not just stories, they are the threads that tie the past to the present and guide the future. But more than anything, the simple act of being together in this moment of warmth and quiet makes everything else seem bearable. The cold will return once the fire dies down. The winds will howl again. But for now, in this moment, the cold is held at bay by the warmth of the hearth, the presence of family, and the bond that unites them all. There is no rush, no urgency to move beyond this moment. In the stillness, in the flickering light of the fire, there is only peace, only quiet comfort. As the night deepens and the fire begins to settle into its final embers, there is a quiet stillness that wraps around the house. The wind outside has begun to soften, its howls now distant echoes, as if it too is winding down for the night. The house, filled with the warmth of the fire and the closeness of loved ones, feels like a small sanctuary in the midst of an unforgiving world. It's in these moments of stillness, in the glow of the dying fire and the quiet hum of the wind outside, that the Kurdish people find peace. There is no urgency now, no need to rush or to worry. The day's work is done, the animals are fed, the fire is burning, and the family is together. All that's left to do is rest. The burden of survival is shared, and for now, they can let go of the weight of the cold that has pushed at them from every direction. And so, as the family settles down for the night, as they find their places near the warmth of the fire, there is an invitation to rest. Not just rest for the body, but rest for the soul. For the first time that day, there is peace. The cold, the wind, the snow, they are no longer threats. They are simply part of the world, just as the warmth, the fire, and the family are. There is a calm that comes with knowing that, despite it all, they have endured. To the listener, as the story of the Kurdish spirit winds down, there is a gentle reminder that just as the Kurdish people find rest after a long, cold day, so too can you. In your own space, in the warmth of your own home, you can take comfort. The struggles of the day are over. The cold has been kept at bay. And now, like the Kurdish family, you can find solace in the stillness, in the quiet, in the simple act of being present in this moment. Just as the fire burns low, casting its soft glow over the room, so too can you find peace in the warmth of your own surroundings. The world outside may be full of challenges, but within there is comfort, connection, and the promise of rest. Allow yourself to embrace that peace, and let the quiet of the night surround you, knowing that, like the Kurdish people, you are never truly alone in your struggles. You are resilient, you are capable, and, for now, you can rest.